So I'm sure a lot of us were caught by surprise when season 3 was announced. Were you ever at a point of being surprised, or did you always think it would happen?
Oh, no, I can't say I always thought it would happen. I mean, I always hoped it would happen, and I don't think I ever thought there's no possible way it could ever come back. I've been on shows where I feel like there's no possible way they'll ever come back, but this didn't feel like one of them. And there was such a sort of groundswell of support from the fans that I did think, wow, I think maybe we have a chance. And I think we found out about that it was a go, that we got a green light only about 10 days before the announcement. So we had a little bit of warning, but not a lot. But we had been talking with Sam Register at Warner Brothers for almost a year before that, where it was sort of like, maybe, so it wasn't a huge surprise by the time it actually came around and they made the announcement, but still there's a surreal quality to it. I mean, every time we start a new step in the process, or like we're at a recording session and one of the season 1 or 2 actors comes back to do a role that they played back then, and it happens all over again. It's like, we're back, and everyone's like, we're back, and it's really a feeling that we haven't lost track of, that we really, the sort of, there's still a miraculous quality to it, even though I thought there was always a possibility, and even though the groundswell seemed to indicate maybe this could happen, and Warner Brothers seemed to indicate maybe it could happen, I still, to this day, think it's still kind of a minor miracle that it actually is happening. And I don't think we've lost that sense in making season 3, even now, that we just are still sort of kind of giddy. I don't know how else to describe it, over the fact that we're getting to do this thing that we love more of it. And so
I'm curious, what do you think has sort of changed from the point where the show wasn't working and was canceled to 4 years later, where suddenly?
I think streaming services is what changed. I mean, it's a different sort of income stream, and one thing that Sam Register said to us when he first talked to us about maybe coming back is that he said to Brandon and I and Phil, you guys created the perfect binge-watching show, you just did it 5 years too soon. And so, if that binge-watching model had existed, I mean, it kind of did, but it wasn't, it hadn't really coalesced yet. If that model had existed 5 years ago, we might never have gone off the air, but now that's a whole new way for them to, on a business standpoint, for them to capitalize on it. And then the way we build our stories, it works really well for binge watching. It just does. It wasn't designed for that. We didn't think of that in advance, but we definitely, weave this tapestry, and that's a great way to sort of encourage binging a show. So that worked out for us.
What is I guess, a lot of people kind of had like they had like kind of like issue with like the time skip, for this one season to the other. So what was the challenges going into season 3 and to kind of like, I mean, was there ever temptation like, okay, maybe we can go like 10 years later, or was it just like, hey,
we're doing 1,000 years later, doing the Legion of Superheroes? No, we're not doing that this year. We are doing a time jump, not going to say how much, but we feel that's an important element of our show, that we keep our characters aging. It's one of the things that's sort of unique about our show. Most shows, for lots of reasons, sort of create a setting and then the characters don't age, particularly animated series. They don't age, perpetual summer, or perpetual characters perpetually 9 years old or 18 years old or however old they were in episode 1, they still are in a lot of animated shows in episode 101. And for us, that ability, it's such a major theme for us, this idea of growing up and growing, and how can we show that if we're not moving forward through time. And even in terms of just, one season for us was 6 months more or less in real time. Season 2 was 6 months more or less in real time. It was July through January, and then it was January through July. We just stuck 5 years in the middle between the seasons so that we could really show the evolution of these characters, the maturing of these characters, their growth. We feel that's something that's unique to this presentation of these DC heroes, something that we can do that a live action show couldn't do, something that we can do that most animated series don't do. And so that's something that we wanted to keep doing, so that we really continue that evolution.
Can you tease anything about your versions of Sissy and Stephanie, and what made you decide to bring Stephanie into the story now?
Well, it was kind of a plan from the beginning. I mean, when we put Burnell Jones and his young daughter into season 1, who's Sissy, we didn't name her, but we named him, so anyone who felt like, oh, who is this Burnell Jones? Oh, he's the father of Sissy King Jones. Okay, then, wait, that's Arrowette. So on one level, that wasn't an accident. It's like, oh, wait, use Burnell Jones, and gee, it turns out we knew that. So, and the same thing by using Stephanie in season 2 in a couple of brief scenes in one episode. The idea is that our young heroes, our season 1 heroes, our season 2 heroes, were inspired by the Justice League, and that they're now getting to the point where they're inspiring a new generation of young heroes. And that was always something that we had built into this, that this was a generational thing. And it doesn't begin with Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and it doesn't end with Nightwing, Superboy, and Wonder Girl. And so we wanted to keep that going. So now we have characters, ranging in age from Jay Garrick, who's in his 90s at this point, to characters as young as Spoiler and Arrowette, and frankly even younger. I'm not going to say who, but we've got some other characters that we at least cameo even younger in the show. So that idea of Barry Allen being inspired by Jay Garrick and Wally West being inspired by Barry Allen, and that ongoing sort of notion of this being generational is, again, part and parcel of what our show is.
In the season 1 and season 2, the team changes. The characters have changed and they grew up, and now we're going to see another change in dynamic between the team. Can you go into what made the decision to change the lineup, so to say?
Again, in a world that... Well, one of the things that we decided at the beginning, and Brandon talked about this at the panel a little bit, is that when Sam first came to us and said Young Justice, Brandon and I were both like, no. Because here was Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, and here was Teen Titans, and they'd been both great shows, and we were like, where is their territory for us to sort of plant our own flag there? And really Brandon came up with it. It was this idea of, well, what if we did something that is more covert ops, and what if we made this a show that's a teenage show first, in a more realistic vein, and a covert ops show second, and a superhero show only third. And what that meant is that we did everything we could to blend. I mean, obviously, we got science fiction, we got superheroes, we got Zatanna saying spells backwards. I'm not trying to pretend it's the real world, but on the other hand, we wanted to do as much to ground it in reality as possible. So things even like the timestamps were ways for us to say, this is where it is. This is when it's happening. We have to keep track of that time. By the way, if I'd known what a pain in the ass the timestamps were, to keep track of time zones and everything, I would never have done them. But having done them, we're stuck with them. And I do think they've been useful in that vein. things like the way Phil and Brandon designed the costumes so that they don't all look like they all shop at Superheroes Are Us at the same store, that everyone's costume is unique to their needs. We wanted to ground it in reality, and so another thing about that is that as characters get older and change, some of them will walk away from this, some of them will die, some of them new characters will come up. Also, we were doing a DC Universe show, and so, if you don't there comes a point where if you don't do Cassie Sandsmark now, when are you going to get to do her? If you don't, we showed 8-year-old Sissy Burnell Jones in season 1. If we don't put her in season 3, then by the time we get to season 4 and 5, it may just be too late. So part of it is the show's sort of telling us it's got its own drive, and the characters are aging, and because they age, Billy Batson's not going to be 10 years old forever. And you saw that even just between season 1 and season 2. The Captain Marvel model stays the same, but Billy's model changed drastically between season 1 and season 2. And so that's just something we always have to keep aware of, is where our various characters are in the timeline at any given time.
With the fan support that came after the cancellation and the petitions and the online support that you all have, do you feel a huge amount of pressure to please the people that has backed this so hard?
Always. But we felt that from day one. It's not like this was some original property. This was, characters, we're dealing with Dick Grayson, with Wally West, with Connor Kent, even some of the characters that were a little more obscure, like Miss Martian or Artemis, or were in essence more or less original, like Cal Duran. We're carrying the weight of 75 years of DC Comics continuity. I did Spider-Man for Sony and Marvel. I did Star Wars Rebels. Talk about pressure. So, we've always sort of felt that. All we can do, and this I do feel strongly about, is Brandon and Phil and I and the rest of the incredible cast and crew we have on this show. We are making the show that we want to see. And the reason we do that is I feel like I can't be guessing at what the fans want. I've got to be passionate about what we're doing, because if I'm not passionate about it, how can I expect any fan, casual or otherwise, to ever be passionate about it? But what we always do is we do that. We write to our passions, we draw to our passions, we do all the work to our passions, and then we just cross our fingers and hope that there are enough people out there who agree with us that they like it. And the good news is that obviously, at least for 2 seasons, that's been the case, and that method has served us very well, so we're sticking with it. There are without a doubt going to be things that happen in season 3 that individual fans aren't going to like, and there are going to be things that they love, and we're hoping on average that they love more than they don't like. But I think in general, if you like season 1 and season 2, you're going to love season 3, because it's not just more of the same. It's the next it's the next evolution up. It's really taking everything we've done and upping the ante even more. And I'm thrilled with what we've done so far. Some of the stories that we've got going for this 3rd season are just stunning to me on a lot of levels. Even to me, just like, wow, we're doing this. We're going there, and I think it's going to be great.
Whose idea was it to revamp Sportsmaster? That's a very obscure character, at least to me, and to see him looking that, pardon language, badass like that. It's like, okay, I actually like this character.
That was some combination of me, Brandon, and probably Kevin Hops, who was our staff writer on season 1. And then, obviously, the thing that made it work, the thing that makes it sing, is Phil Barrasa's design of the character. But really, what the Sportsmaster thing came out very organically, just out of the choice to use Artemis. Once we sort of fixed on Artemis as one of our core 6 characters, her backstory is her parents were supervillains, and So who were her parents? Her parents were Huntress and Sportsmaster. And then there was a discussion of like Sportsmaster. We're really going to do Sportsmaster? It's like, wait, we can do Sportsmaster. We're going to ditch out on some of the sillier things like, baseball bats and big, catcher's mitts and stuff like that. But if you think of a lot of, Olympic track and field events evolved out of warfare. So if you're using a shot put, if you're using the hammer, if you're using a javelin, those are weapons of war. And so if you think of Sportsmaster along those lines, someone who's trained in archery, trained in all these kind of events that evolved out of warfare, this is a dangerous guy. And then from the standpoint of personality, I said at the panel, we thought of Sportsmaster as sort of, Teen Titans had so done Slade, so done Deathstroke, that we felt like we'd get to him eventually, but we didn't want to use him right away. But it felt to us like Sportsmaster could be sort of a blue-collar Deathstroke. The guy who wasn't quite as successful, but was badass. And then you see what Phil designed, and huge props to Nick Chinland, who plays Sportsmaster, and all our voice cast, but what Nick brought to that part, it's like we sat back and said, wow, we just made Sportsmaster cool. And on one level that made us kind of arrogant, because we were like, well, if we can make Sportsmaster cool, we can make anybody cool. And so that's been fun. It's like, all right, let's see what we can do with Professor Oho.
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, but your season 1 theme was Secrets and Lies.
Mm-hmm.
Season 2 was Freshmen and Seniors.
Well, we have multiple. Secrets and Lies runs through all 3 seasons, and will always be a part of the show because we're doing a show that focuses on covert ops. I would say the contrast between season 1 and season 2. Season 1 was about the relationship between the mentors and the proteges, the heroes and the quote-unquote sidekicks. Difference in season 2 is that it was, it's like, okay, let's take the mentors, let's send the main ones out into outer space for 14 episodes or 15 episodes, and let's put the burden on the seniors now to be mentors to these freshmen. And so that was really the contrast. Secrets and Lies run through the whole thing. The generational themes run through the whole thing. But I think the contrasting between season 1 and season 2 was, how are the kids relating to these adults? Now how are the freshmen relating to these seniors? And how are those seniors who were kids just a little while ago dealing with mentoring these even younger heroes? And again, all that will continue into season 3, but things are even more sort of scattered. Things kind of fall apart a bit at the beginning of season 3, and we move forward from there.
Do you think that if the show continued on Cartoon Network, would you have the same storyline as you would have now? That
we'd have the same basic storyline. I mean, we have a little more. We definitely have more freedom now to deal with more adult themes. It seems appropriate to us. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. It's the same show. I don't think people will turn into season 3 and suddenly go, wow, it's pornographic now, or anything like that. That's not going to happen. I want to make sure I'm clearly saying that's not happening. But on the other hand, our characters are aging. So, the issues that 14-year-old Dick Grayson is dealing with are dealt with, in season 1 are very different than what 19-year-old Dick Grayson dealt with in season 2, and are different still from where he is. I'm not going to exactly say how old he is, but what still older Dick Grayson is going to be dealing with in season 3, and that's true for all our characters, particularly the ones, though, that you've been seeing since day 1. The season 1 core team is continuing to move forward, and so what that means is that the themes are more mature. And the good news is that we have the freedom being on a streaming service and not having to deal with the same standards and practices, concerns that Cartoon Network have. that we can be a little more upfront about those themes than we were able to do at Cartoon Network. But the basics of it haven't changed. We had a basic game plan, that hasn't changed. We've left ourselves open to discovery as we go. But again, we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're just evolving it as organically as we possibly can.
Can you talk a little bit about 13, your new character? Tell us a little bit about who she is and what role she's going to serve in the season.
Well, she is she's based on Tracy 13. So I'm not going to tell you much more than that. I'm not big on spoilers. I like the character spoiler, but I'm not big on spoilers, and so I'm not going to give you too much information. But she joins the team, and we think she's a real fun character. We've recorded the first, well, at least pieces of the first 10 episodes. So we're not revealing who's playing who yet, but we've recorded the actress who plays her, and it was just really great. And her powers are magic-based, just as Tracy's are, but we've done a little Young Justice twist on it, and that's about all I have to say.
When you first developed Young Justice, it was before the New 52 initiative. Now that New 52 had been around for a couple of years, will any of those concepts or designs be reflected in the series?
Well, when we came back, it was just after Rebirth.
Yeah.
So Rebirth is an organic semi-reboot of New 52. Just in terms of where I was, I didn't read a lot of New 52. It's not a comment on it. I just was really busy doing Star Wars Rebels, so I was reading a lot of Star Wars stuff right then. But I've been reading all of Rebirth. I mean, I'm a couple months behind because I'm also kind of busy, but I've literally been reading all of Rebirth and read a few issues of Nightwing last night, and an issue of Red Hood and the Outlaws this morning, and I'm literally reading all the Rebirth stuff, and so you're definitely going to see some Rebirth elements. I'm not going to say what, but you're definitely, I mean, just the fact that we're using spoiler as opposed to, I mean, we knew we were doing Stephanie Brown, and it was like, okay, we're going to do her as Robin, we're going to do her as Batgirl, we're going to do her as Spoiler. And Spoiler appealed to me specifically because that's a unique identity, as opposed to her being the upteenth Robin or the upteenth Batgirl. Let's let her be unique. Also, this is her first appearance, and Stephanie showed up for the first time. She was Spoiler, not Robin or Batgirl, so that seemed to fit. But it didn't hurt that Rebirth has her as Spoiler now. So it felt like, yeah, this just feels right. So you'll see elements from Rebirth playing in a bit. But basically, this is still Earth 16. This is the universe we've charted. And again, it's an organic moving forward from that. We're not really trying to inject X or Y specifically. But, something like that doesn't hurt.